what's it like to put my hands in the soil? First of all, it feels like you're being naughty because when you were growing up, your mother would always say, don't get dirty, don't get dirty. And to just kind of plunge your hands into this rich, dark, healthy soil, and then to actually put your seed in the soil and cover it and just really kind of caress it and then water it. I mean, it's an act of love, really, to know that you're birthing something, actually, and that it's something that's sustainable, that once the vegetable or herb or whatever you're planting, reaches maturity, you're going to use it to nourish yourself and to nourish your family. Our garden is located on the former site of Lincoln Elementary School, and it was at the center of a historic desegregation case, and it was the first desegregation case filed and won in a northern city. The parents had filed a suit against the school district of New Rochelle, claiming that the school had been systematically segregated. After the parents won the desegregation case, people thought that New Rochelle Board of Education was going to integrate Lincoln School, but that wasn't going to happen. The judge, ruled that they had to come up with an integration plan, a desegregation plan, and their plan was to tear down the school.
Long perceived as a bedroom community of New York City, New Rochelle is a place unique in both contemporary and colonial New York, as being settled by a relatively large community of enslaved Africans, predating the Revolutionary War by nearly 100 years.
This legacy has left a lasting imprint on the city in numerous ways, despite being largely hidden from the dominant urban narrative, one that's defined by leadership, policies, and projects that directly undercut the social and historic fabric of Black history.
At the same time, New Rochelle is growing and changing in significant ways, as manifest in over 30 downtown development projects and a large transportation improvement planning initiative. The speed of this change and its significant imprint on the city fabric has had and continues to have the potential to overlook long latent needs and histories.
Change could also bring with it unintended consequences to long-term and historically disadvantaged populations that have experienced the negative and traumatic effects of urban change disproportionately already. Alternately, if planned for and cultivated with the community, change could be positive and could lead to long-lasting social cohesion.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon Sinclair, an urban planner.
And I'm Gina Ford, a landscape architect, and we are with Agency Landscape and Planning. This studio will focus on cultural storytelling, systems thinking, and investment in public infrastructure.
We will surface new stories, address equitably issues of connectivity and change, and build more awareness of rich, buried layers of the city's past. We will work directly with identified civic advocates and community members to better comprehend the lived experiences of the place. Said directly, Linda, who you heard a moment ago, and Narelle, who you will hear from shortly, are two of the project's identified muses, whose lives and stories will allow students to learn from the past to envision an equitable future. Engaged as a multidisciplinary team of students and in collaboration with the community, we will work in a 3-part process to inventory, imagine systems change, pilot design, and create an exhibition. We will welcome the full array of disciplines and students. This funded studio will include multiple studio site visits and frequent community engagement.
In our work at Agency, we use tools to investigate place as shown here, such as community asset mapping, demographics analysis, digging into history, natural systems, and physical conditions. These are the kinds of drawings that we make as part of that investigation.
In New Rochelle, we will dig deeply into a compilation of the city's history and their current physical attributes, as well as understand the attributes of the city or that are less physical, including activation of spaces and spaces that are much more fallow.
In our work, we use community engagement as a tool to really dig deeply into lived experience of place. Here in Columbus, Indiana, we worked with diverse constituents to understand their histories as a way of celebrating and mobilizing for positive change.
We find New Rochelle inspiring in that the depth of understanding of this community really lies in what we've called these project muses and the development of narrative and a cultural archaeology of the community through those narratives.
In our work, we work with communities to really envision future change at an urban scale. So really thinking about development strategy, infrastructural improvement, transportation systems. We see these kinds of drawings and these kinds of ideas as core to the studio at New Rochelle.
In New Rochelle, we'll move from an assessment of citywide systems, including what you can see on the screen as it relates to infrastructure that has broken apart legacy urban fabrics, to identify and begin to develop a design pilot exploration of key sites.
In our work, we always try to land urban strategies and specific design recommendations, and this is really critical to allowing the community to see the kinds of change and participate in the kinds of change they want to see.
And in those projects, we'll dig deeply into topics such as green infrastructure improvements, public realm investments, and new development typologies that all touch upon cross-cutting themes like public health, resilience, and social cohesion. We will share the studio findings at the very end of the studio in an outward public forum, whether that be an online microsite or a more physical and moving exhibition. We will share this information back with the community in a multitude of ways.
There are a lot of things that need to be done in the New Rochelle community. Education is really a key point, that there are particularly young Black male students who are falling out of the system, who need special attention. In terms of housing is another concern. The cost of living is rising. They've built all of these new high rises that, many community members in New Rochelle will not be able to afford. So there are a number of issues that need to be discussed, as well as I even think making sure that the history of Black African American communities in New Rochelle is a part of the curriculum, right? That our history is shared and known just as much as the Huguenots, that we are a key foundational piece of this city and should be recognized as such. I'm Dr. Narelle Edwards. I'm currently the Chancellor's Postdoctoral Fellow at Texas Christian University. I think a lot of times marginalized communities have felt like they don't have anything to leverage, but we do. And just figuring out what that is and how to speak up, even if you just sometimes publicly shame public officials, you gotta do what you gotta do to leverage what you have to get what you need. African American communities in New Rochelle has faced a constant history of displacement, including my own family that was displaced from Moore Street to move to subsidized housing in Lincoln over and over again throughout the years. And as we look ahead to another rezoning, this is another potential on the horizon. And ultimately, that is why reparations for African American families is so important. That there is, in being forced to move, there's a certain amount of sort of like money, assets, different things that are lost, and having to constantly move and be pushed around. Not to mention even the sort of like the damage that does psychologically even on you, and not feeling like there's a space that is safely your home that will not be challenged or you will not be removed from, right? So thinking about the African American community in New Rochelle and just ensuring that they have a real place that is theirs and will not be moved from is really important, and giving them the resources and the money and the assets to be able to stay in that place.